Hey there and welcome. Today we're going to dig into a really powerful idea about trust, and it comes from some pretty ancient wisdom. It's all about the difference between a fire that actually warms you and one you try to build yourself that, well, might just leave you out in the cold. Let's get right into it.
So get this, a fire that doesn't actually provide any warmth. It sounds kind of weird, right? Like a contradiction. But it's this amazing metaphor for a struggle that honestly we all go through. Stick with me and we'll unpack exactly what this means.
Okay, let me ask you something. When a problem pops up, when you're really in a jam, what's your gut reaction? Your first move? If you're anything like me, you probably want to jump in and just fix it, right? Take control of the whole situation. And that instinct, it actually has a name. For today's lesson, we're going to call it lighting our own fire. It's that moment we decide, okay, I've got this. And we start relying on our own plans, our own strategies, our own strength to get out of whatever mess we're in. We basically grab the matches and start trying to build our own little blaze.
And believe me, this is not a new idea. The prophet Isaiah was writing about this thousands of years ago. He said, "Indeed, all of you who kindle a fire, walk into the light of your fire." It almost sounds like an invitation, doesn't it? But there's a really clear, subtle warning packed in there.
And that little warning? Well, that brings us right into our next section, the danger of strange fire. Because, as it turns out, not all fire is good fire. The kind we make for ourselves can actually be pretty dangerous. And now we're going to explore exactly why. So take a look at this. It really lays out the contrast. On one side, you've got our little DIY fire. It's built from our own schemes, our own plans, and, let's be honest, our very limited point of view. But on the other side, you have God's plan. It works on His timing and with His perfect knowledge. What we see as a total disaster, He might see as a chance to learn something. The bottom line is, our fire often just gets in the way of His.
You know, the book of Leviticus actually calls this strange fire. It tells this story about two guys, Nadab and Abihu, who offered a fire that God had not commanded. And that's the key right there. It wasn't what was asked for. It was their own invention, their own idea of what should be done. So all of this leads to a pretty critical question. If we insist on lighting our own fires, if we decide to walk by the light of our own little self-made torches instead of trusting a much bigger plan, what happens? What's the end game here?
And here's the answer, right back in that verse from Isaiah. It's pretty blunt. It continues by saying that from God's hand, this is what you'll get. You will lie down in torment. That fire we thought would save us, the one we so frantically built with our own two hands, it doesn't lead to comfort. It leads to misery. It's a fire that burns, all right, but it doesn't warm. Now, I know that sounds incredibly bleak, but don't worry. The lesson doesn't just end in torment. It pivots to the solution, and that brings us to our next section, a lesson in surrender.
And the absolute perfect example of this comes from Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Look at the first part of his prayer here. It is so brutally honest. He says, "Abba, Father, remove this cup from me." He's telling God his own will, his own desire. He isn't pretending he wants the suffering that's coming. And that's so important. The first step is always being honest.
But then, right after that raw honesty, comes the most important part, the pivot. Yet not what I will, but what you will. And this, right here, this is the heart of surrender. It's that moment we finally put down our own matches, step away from our own little fire, and decide to trust the light from a greater source, even when we don't get it at all. Okay, so this is all great, but how do we actually apply this to our lives, like right here, right now? Let's get practical. This next section is all about wisdom for daily life, and I've got a couple of really great analogies to help this lesson stick.
All right, check out these two big ideas. First, the clock analogy. Think about it. You can walk up to a clock on the wall and physically move the hands to whatever time you want them to be. But does that change what time it actually is? Nope, not at all. You're just messing with the display. And second, the rosebud. You can take a little, delicate rosebud and force its petals open with your fingers, but you won't get a beautiful flower. You'll just get a broken, ruined one. In both cases, our interference, our fire, just ends up wrecking a natural and much better process.
Which brings us to a wrap-up. This whole thing, it really boils down to one simple, powerful mindset, a final prayer that we can keep in our back pocket for whenever we feel that urge to take control.
So, for our final thought, when we find ourselves in trouble, when that instinct to light our own fire really kicks in, what should our response be? What's the simple prayer that can literally change everything? Here it is. This is the ultimate takeaway. As you will, not as I will.
This is the essence of real trust. It's about letting go of our frantic little plans and resting in a will that is so much wiser, better, and ultimately way more trustworthy than our own. It's the choice to step away from that strange fire that only brings torment and step into a peace that we could never, ever create for ourselves. So, what will you choose today?